My name is Janie Campbell. I'm 29 years old, and tonight I'm sitting in what used to be our apartment, surrounded by half-empty walls and stacked boxes. Tomorrow this place won't belong to me anymore, and neither will Troy. Only a few hours ago, my fiancé looked me straight in the eye and said the words every bride dreads. We need to cancel the wedding. I found someone better. He said it casually, like he was announcing dinner plans. Not a flicker of shame on his face, not even a trace of guilt. He even wore the shirt I bought him last Christmas paired with cologne he usually saved for client dinners. He wanted to look untouchable. But here's the part he didn't expect. I didn't cry, scream, or beg. Instead, I smiled faintly and replied, already done. His head snapped up. What do you mean? I canceled everything last week. The venue, the catering, the photographer, got most of the deposits back too. And before you ask, your things are packed. 3 boxes labeled, waiting for you in the garage. For the first time in months, I saw him lose his composure. His voice cracked. You packed my stuff. I leaned back against the chair, arms folded. On Tuesday, while you were at your so-called book club, I even lifted my fingers to make sarcastic air quotes. He blinked, disoriented, as if the script he had written in his head had suddenly been torn apart. In his version, he was supposed to deliver the cruel twist, and I'd collapse in tears, begging him not to leave. He'd savor the power walk away triumphant, and maybe run straight into Vanessa's arms. But he hadn't realized something important I'd known for months. The late-night absences. The phone flipped screen down every time I entered the room. The sudden password changes. He thought I was blind, or worse, stupid. He had no idea I'd already read the messages he accidentally left open on his iPad, carelessly abandoned on the kitchen counter. 3 months of quiet suffering turned into 3 months of careful planning. I wasn't just preparing for heartbreak, I was preparing for freedom. As Troy sat across from me, still reeling, I finally let the silence linger. I wanted him to feel what I had felt for weeks, the sinking, twisting awareness that the person across from you is no longer yours, and maybe never really was. Tomorrow I'll walk out of this apartment with nothing but my suitcase and a plan. But tonight I want him to sit in this hollow room and realize something he never expected. The girl he thought was naive had been playing her own game all along. And unlike him, I wasn't sloppy. This breakup wasn't his grand finale, it was mine. I didn't stumble into Troy's betrayal, he practically handed it to me. 3 months ago, he left his iPad on the kitchen counter screen still glowing. Normally I would have ignored it, but one notification changed everything. A message from Vanessa, flirty emojis, a restaurant reservation for 2, the kind of text you don't mistake for just coworkers. I didn't confront him, not then. Confrontation gives cheaters the upper hand. They twist it, they lie, they make you doubt yourself. Instead, I forced myself to breathe close the iPad and act as though nothing had happened. But inside, something in me hardened. That night, I sat in bed pretending to scroll through my phone while he showered. My mind was racing. If he thought he could play me, then fine, I'd play better. The first step was legal protection. We weren't married yet, but we lived together for 2 years. We shared bills, rent a life. I booked a quiet consultation with a lawyer. I wanted to know exactly what Troy could take from me and what I could take from him. The meeting opened my eyes. Separate savings accounts, rental lease, under my name only, no shared credit cards. It meant I had more leverage than I realized. Which brought me to the next discovery. Troy had insisted early in our engagement that we save separately for the wedding. He said it was healthier. In reality, it was a red flag I chose to ignore. He told me he was contributing $500 a month to our wedding account. But when I looked closer, I saw the truth. He was only transferring $300. The other $200 slipping away into a secret account. Here's where it gets interesting. Months earlier, Troy had begged me to help him set up online banking. He always reused the same lazy password patterns, his birthday, his dog's name, the most predictable choices. I never used that information until the night I discovered Vanessa. When I checked his so-called secret account, the balance sat just under $5,000. But there was a catch he didn't even realize. That account was still legally tied to his old college checking account, the one his father Theodore had co-signed years ago. And Theodore, he was a man who despised infidelity. His first wife had left him for another man. The betrayal had scarred him, made him relentless when it came to loyalty and trust. Over the years, Theodore and I had grown close. He treated me like the daughter he wished he had. Just last month, we'd had lunch together. I'd casually mentioned Troy seemed distant not to accuse, but to plant a seed. The way Theodore's jaw tightened told me everything. If Troy ever slipped, his father wouldn't protect him. He'd protect me. And I planned to make sure of it. So while Troy thought he was hiding money for his shiny new life with Vanessa, the truth was darker. That account wasn't his alone. Legally, Theodore still had a hand in it. And soon, that hand would close around Troy's throat tighter than he ever imagined. Back in the present, Troy tried to regain the upper hand. He crossed his arms, leaning back in the chair like he was still in control. "I'm taking all my money from the wedding account," he announced, his voice sharp. I didn't flinch. "Sure," I said softly. "Your contributions are already back in your account. Every last penny." I pulled out my phone, opened the banking app, and tilted the screen toward him. His eyes darted back and forth as the numbers registered. 3,600. That was all. "What is this?" His voice cracked. "Where's the rest?" I let a faint smile curl at the edge of my lips. "That is the rest. Every single dollar you actually put in." He froze. I could almost see the math spinning in his head. For months, he'd lied to me, claiming he was putting in $500 each month while secretly pocketing $200 into his hidden fund. In his mind, he had double the savings stacked between both accounts. In reality, his nest egg was paper thin. "This isn't right," he stammered, shaking his head. "I saved more than that." "No," I corrected gently. "You told me you saved more. Big difference." The color drained from his face. His arrogance was cracking, and I savored every second. Then came the desperate pivot. "It doesn't matter," he blurted. "Vanessa makes 3 times what you do anyway. I don't need this." Finally, he said her name. The mask was off. "Good for Vanessa," I replied evenly, folding my arms. "Hope she's cool with your spending habits. Like that $400 purse you bought last week while lecturing me about cutting back on wedding expenses." His jaw dropped. He hadn't expected me to know about that, but I wasn't done. "You really think Vanessa's your upgrade?" I asked, my tone almost sympathetic. "Funny thing about upgrades, Troy. Sometimes they come with hidden costs." His brow furrowed confusion, overtaking his anger. I leaned forward just enough for my words to land like a dagger. "Vanessa's married. 2 kids. You knew that, right?" The silence between us was deafening. His pupils widened, panic flooding in. For the first time tonight, he looked small. And that's when my phone buzzed. I picked it up, put it on speaker. Janie Theodore's deep voice rumbled through the line. "I've secured the account. Troy won't be able to touch a cent. Not until he figures out how to be a decent human being." Troy's head whipped toward me. You told my dad." I tilted my chin slightly. I didn't have to. He figured it out. He always does. Troy's hands balled into fists on the table. His secret account, his escape plan, his shiny future with Vanessa all slipping through his fingers. And the best part, I hadn't laid a single trap he didn't walk into himself. A week later, I was in a hotel room in my new city, half unpacked, sipping lukewarm coffee when my phone buzzed. 19 unread emails, all from Troy. The first few dripped with rage. "You're a sociopath. Who planned something like this? You're sick." Then they shifted into bargaining. "Janie, I made a mistake. We can fix this. We have history. Please just talk to me." And finally, they curdled into threats. "I know where you work now. If you don't reply, I'll tell them what kind of person you really are." I almost laughed. I hadn't even started my new job yet. Troy thought LinkedIn updates meant instant employment. The entitlement was staggering. Later that afternoon, Theodore called. His voice carried the weight of exhaustion, but also the steel of resolve. "Janie, you should know Troy tried to access that frozen account again. The bank flagged it as fraud." I closed my eyes, a bitter smile tugging at my lips. "Of course he did." Theodore sighed. "He's blaming you for everything. Even told me you manipulated me. The irony is suffocating." It was almost poetic Troy, who had lied and stolen, now screaming abuse when faced with his own reflection. But his spiral wasn't just financial, it was social. I soon learned from a mutual friend that Troy had tried to claim half of the refunded wedding venue deposit. He even called the venue, directly demanding his share. The manager shut him down instantly. The booking was canceled under Janie's card refund processes to her account. Legally, there's nothing here for you. Humiliation one layer at a time. Meanwhile, Vanessa's carefully curated double life was crumbling. Her husband discovered the affair not through whispers, but through cold, hard bank statements. Every dinner, she and Troy enjoyed, every hotel room they snuck into, billed on a corporate credit card. The company launched an internal audit. Vanessa was placed on leave. And Troy, he didn't just lose her affection. He lost his imagined safety net. I sat in my new room, rain tapping at the window, rereading his desperate emails. A strange calm washed over me. For so long I'd been the one, blindsided, manipulated, lied to. Now the balance had shifted. Troy had nothing left to cling to. Not me, not Vanessa, not even his money. But I also knew men like him never collapse quietly. They claw, they twist, they invent new angles of attack. And he was just getting started. The emails didn't stop. They multiplied. When he realized I wasn't replying, Troy turned his chaos outward. First came the legal stunt. He actually hired a lawyer. His case was laughable. Emotional damages because I canceled the wedding without his consent. His share of the wedding venue refund. The frozen savings account, which he claimed was stolen. Lost wages because moving back with his mother somehow cost him income. The lawyer lasted exactly one consultation. Theodore later texted me, half amused, half weary. She asked me to fund his lawsuit. I told him to use his own money. He hung up on me. When the law failed him, Troy turned to sympathy. He called our mutual friends, spinning a story where I was the abuser, cold, controlling, withholding affection, until he had no choice but to seek comfort in Vanessa's arms. But lies have a short shelf life. Jess, one of my bridesmaids, called me privately. Her voice was sharp. Janie did Troy really just claim you forced him to cheat because he told me months ago he was in love with Vanessa and planned to leave you after the wedding so he could still get the gifts? I let out a hollow laugh. That sounds exactly like him. Jess didn't hesitate. Then I'm done. He's burned everyone now. Even his last allies were turning their backs. But Troy wasn't finished. A week later, my old landlord called. Rosa, the building manager, had always been kind. Her voice was nervous when she said, Janie, I'm so sorry to bother you, but Troy's here. He's demanding we let him into your old unit. My stomach tightened. That apartment is empty. I moved out weeks ago. I know, she said quickly. I did the walkthrough with you, remember? But he insists you left something valuable, a family heirloom. A grandmother's ring. I nearly dropped the phone. What ring? His grandmother died before he was born. Rosa sighed. I told him that. He won't leave. He's shouting about theft. Should I call the police? Yes, I whispered. Please. 10 minutes later, Rosa texted me, police came. He left, very angry. Sorry for the trouble. Later, Jess confirmed what I suspected. Troy had invented the grandmother's ring because he thought I might have left cash or documents hidden in the apartment. He literally fabricated a family heirloom to snoop. It was desperation pure and pathetic. And it wasn't his last attempt at fraud. Theodore called again, voice heavy with disappointment. Janie, you won't believe this. He asked me to say his grandmother's ring was worth $50,000 so he could file an insurance claim. I told him both my mother and his mother were buried with their rings. He screamed at me, called me a traitor. I pressed my hand against my forehead, half in disbelief, half in dark amusement. Troy was unraveling. He wasn't just a liar anymore, he was delusional. And yet, something in my gut told me this wasn't the bottom. There was always one more scheme, one more desperate play. I just didn't know how far he'd fall to keep pretending he hadn't already lost everything. And then, silence. For 3 whole weeks, not a single email, call, or text from Troy. After months of noise, the quiet felt almost eerie. A storm before something worse. The call came from Keith, an old coworker. His voice was urgent, disbelieving. Janie, do you know Troy's been telling people you died? I nearly dropped my mug. What? He's posting all over social media about losing you in some tragic accident. Black and white photos of you two together, long posts about grief, even a GoFundMe for funeral expenses. He's raised over $3,000. My stomach turned cold. I asked Keith to send me screenshots. Moments later, they lit up my screen, my face, my name twisted into some grotesque sympathy scam. His captions, she was my soulmate taken too soon. Help me cover funeral costs and time off work. But Troy had made a critical mistake. Social media isn't a one-way street. People began asking questions. What happened? Where's the obituary? When's the funeral? His answers kept shifting. Car accident, sudden illness, private cremation. The inconsistencies piled up. And then the final nail. My former colleague Pablo commented publicly, "That's weird. Janie just endorsed me on LinkedIn yesterday." The lie exploded. Donors demanded refunds. Some even threatened to report him for fraud. Troy tried backpedaling. It was a metaphor. She's dead to me. You all misunderstood. But no one was buying it. Theodore called me half laughing, half sickened. Janie, he asked me to confirm your death so he could file a claim on your life insurance. I let out a hollow laugh. What life insurance? Exactly, Theodore replied grimly. The GoFundMe was shut down. People screenshotted everything before it disappeared, and Troy's humiliation was complete. But he wasn't done. In one last desperate act, he created a website, mytruthaboutjanie.com. His evidence of my supposed abuse. Screenshots of me saying, okay when he texted about staying late. Proof he claimed that I was controlling. Our bank statements showing I earned more. Proof he claimed of financial domination. But here's where his self-sabotage shined. He also posted his own texts with Vanessa, messages bragging about using me until something better came along, admissions about lying on deposits, even mocking me for not noticing. He exposed himself. The site lasted 72 hours before he deleted it, but the damage was irreversible. Friends, co-workers, even family saw it, and no one believed him. My Aunt Martha's comment summed it up best. Sweetheart, this website makes you look like the villain, not her. After that, the curtain finally fell. Vanessa's marriage imploded, her ex-husband divorced her, gutted her in court, and she lost her job for expense fraud. He even messaged me once, thank you for exposing what she really was. She did me a favor. Theodore disowned Troy completely. He donated the frozen account to a charity for single mothers women, who actually deserve support, as he put it. Troy's mother eventually threw him out after the police came knocking about the GoFundMe scam. Last I heard, he was couch surfing unemployed working a kiosk job at the mall when he could get shifts. And me. I signed the lease on a bright new apartment in my new city. My new job pays more than I imagined. And yes, I've started seeing someone. Slowly, carefully, but with someone who is honest, independent, and nothing like Troy. Sometimes at night, I think back to the girl I was the one who cried herself to sleep 3 months straight, pretending not to know her fiancé was betraying her. That girl thought she was powerless. But in the end, I wasn't powerless at all. Troy wanted everything, the money, the mistress, the status, and he lost everything. I gained the one